Good evening, ladies. So, we are going to continue with our writing process for our narrative writing. So, just a refresher, these are some things that we've gone over a little bit already. We've talked about how the topic is where you all are, or you have chosen at this point, your real or imaginary events. You've chosen your characters already, who will be the people in your story. Including yourself, you're also going to be one of your characters. The setting, which is the time and location of the story. Key events, so we're going to have a beginning, middle, and end, which we will work on today. The problem, which will be the main issue, struggle, or conflict. And the solution, which will be the way the characters, or yourselves, solve their problems. So today what we're going to do is start drafting our personal narrative, and I just have a few things that we need to remember for when we start doing this, and we can honestly, we'll just go over this while we do our worksheet, okay? So we're gonna go step by step, and we're gonna go through these so that we can start writing our narrative. So the first thing that I have on my paper is the setting, and the setting is the time and place the story took place. So, does anyone know what your setting is going to be already? Yeah, you all do know what your setting is going to be, right? Because we already started talking about that when we were doing our pre-writing. So, we had a few different ideas. So, right now, raise your hands if you have the specific setting that you all want. Okay, Erica.
One of my settings is going to be during the Jurassic period. So when the continents were all together and it was called Pangea, that's where it's going to be.
Okay, so what we're going to do for about 2 minutes is we're going to stop and we're going to write our setting. We're going to be as descriptive as possible. So if I close my eyes and you just read me what you have about your setting, I should be able to picture it in my head, okay? So, yes.
Do we have different settings if we went different places?
You do have different settings if you went different places. Pick your first setting. We have our orders already, right? So we're gonna pick our first setting and we're just gonna brainstorm and write all about our first setting, okay? And then when you all finish, pencils down so that I know and we can move on to the next piece. All right, so moving on, next we're going to talk about our plot, which our plot will consist of the events that make up our story. So I don't know if you all can see it, but I have first, next, then, and last up here. So first is going to be our introduction. This is going to be how we bring or introduce what's happening in the rest of our story to our students. And then next is going to be where we start everything, okay? So what we're going to do before we even start these, do we know what kind of words these are? First, next, then, and last.
Are they transition words?
They are transition words. Great job. Reading is fundamental because I have it right here. So do we know any other examples of transition words we can use to start off our paragraphs?
Is during a transition word?
During can be a transition word. So that would have to be a transition word for probably the middle of our passage, right? Okay, so during, what do we have any more examples?
What about also?
Also. Any more?
Finally?
Finally, I think that would be a great one for a story, right?
Before.
Before.
After.
After. Right, okay, so these are just a few. And then now, what we're gonna do is, on your worksheets, you all have different spaces provided for each of them. And we're gonna take some time and just brainstorm the beginning of your story. Not brainstorm, but start writing it out, because we've already done our brainstorming. So we already have our outline of pretty much what the events we're gonna have are. So just go ahead and start writing. About 20 more seconds, and then we're gonna move on. All right, ladies, now let's move on to the next piece. So when we look at our chart and we see that in key events we have a beginning, middle, and end. We've already started our story. So we've done our introduction, we've gotten everyone into our setting. Now it's time for our conflict. So it doesn't have to be exactly a conflict, but it can be just like a small issue or something of that sort. So that is going to be what we put in our next, right? So let's go ahead and whatever you all put in your outline, let's branch out on that now. So let's take a little time for that, and then we'll come back together. If you finish early, go ahead and put your pencils down so that I can see and we can move on, okay? Okay, so does anybody have an example, or does anyone want to share out loud what their problem or conflict was for their narrative? Erica?
So I went to the Jurassic period where they have dinosaurs. So my problem was the dinosaurs were trying to eat me, and they were chasing after me.
Okay, so the dinosaurs were trying to eat you and they were chasing after you. So the solution, how we were saying earlier, the solution is how the character will solve the problem. Are you the only character in your story other than the dinosaurs?
Yes.
Okay, and then in that case, what are some ways that we can make sure Erica doesn't get eaten? What are some things that could happen so Erica doesn't end up getting eaten? What's the solution? Jessica?
She could get back in the time machine and go somewhere else.
Oh, she can go somewhere else in the time machine. That is a great idea. So that is one way that we can go ahead and that would be very helpful, wouldn't it? So do you have somewhere else you would go in the time machine? You do? Okay.
Yes.
So is that your second? Is that one of your second places?
Yes.
Okay, because we haven't discussed today, but you all did choose 3 different places in your outlines to go, right? Okay, so we would just transition out into another place. And then, so that's one solution. Go ahead and you all just now write down some different solutions that you all will have. And then once again, put your pencils down when you finish so I know we can move on. Okay, good. Everyone has their pencils down. So last is gonna be our conclusion. So this is the end of our story. Do we have to end up back in our regular time period at the end of our story?
No.
No, right, exactly. We don't. So we can end up wherever we want to be. So remember, we have 3 different places that we're going, right? So at the very end, where are we gonna go? Do you all wanna come back to this time period? Do you all wanna come back to this specific day in present time? Or do you all want to go back to when you were a baby? Now remember, with this, you cannot become the age you were at any point in your life. So if you were to go back to, I was born in 1996. If I go back to 1996, I won't be baby Terry. I'm still gonna be 22-year-old Terry. So let's go ahead and but write down some different ideas that we have for where we would want to end up. Does anyone notice anything that we didn't talk about that we have on our main chart? We didn't really talk about our characters, did we?
No.
Do we know why we didn't talk about our characters?
Because we're the character?
Because we're the characters, exactly. So when we wrote our hook and when we started thinking about the places we wanted to go, we're already developing our character. So we didn't necessarily have to. But for this last piece, what we're going to do is go ahead and develop our character. So now we're gonna go into each of the sections that we've just written and we're gonna add details. So the details are gonna be descriptive words and sentences. An example of a descriptive word, if I were to talk about Erica, how she was going back to see the dinosaurs, I could say the adventurous Erica. So just using small words like that or sentences like we were saying earlier where we can visualize what's happening. So using imagery and all of our other literary terms. Let's go ahead and in our last little section on our worksheet, let's start writing about that now. And just look at what we've already written and say, I could add more detail here. Just make it as thorough as you can. Okay, and then now what we're gonna do is we're gonna just restart that for our next section. So you have one of your events completely done. Now you have 2 left for your time machine, right? So okay, that's what we're gonna work on now.